Hey everybody, ABC 10 meteorologist Brenden Mincheff here with a check of the Memorial Day weekend forecast. And I'll tell you what, it's going to be a lot nicer than Memorial Day 2021 when we made it to 106 degrees in Sacramento. So yeah, much nicer weather to talk about this time around. Delta breeze and 70s, kind of the main weather story, especially in the valley. That onshore flow going to help to keep things cooler than average for this time of year. But in the high country, we are going to be dealing with some of those thunderstorms just about every day over the next week, so even beyond the Memorial Day weekend. So if you are headed up there, going to spend some time up there, do be aware just about every afternoon there is a chance of some thunderstorms. But in general, it's going to be a really nice holiday weekend. Again, we're not too hot, we're not too cold. The only thing is going to be those thunderstorms, and also just to kind of stay out of the water because of how fast the rivers and how cold the rivers are as well. The Thursday before the Memorial Day weekend, so yesterday, as of this recording, 74 degrees was the high temperature. That was several degrees below the average high for this time of year of 83 degrees. That was downtown Sacramento. That means 3 days in a row going into the weekend where we've had highs in the 70s. We had a stretch to start the month where we were in the 60s and 70s. Then we totally flipped the pattern. Just the total 180 went to the 80s and 90s. Even on May 13th, made it to 96 degrees. That was the warmest day so far this year. Then we've kind of done it again. We flipped it back around. We went from the 90s down to the 70s, and that's where we are and will be for the holiday weekend. 69 in Forest Hill for today, for the Friday going into the weekend. 67 Pollock Pines, 75 in Auburn, 83 in Oroville. These temperatures are going to be very similar really all of the weekend. So all 3 days of the long weekend, we're going to be looking at temperatures right around here. 63 in Oakland, 73 in Antioch, 74 in Vacaville and in the Valley. We're going to be in those 70s as well. 79 in Modesto, 79 Stockton, 76 in Elk Grove, about 77 in Sacramento, 80 in Woodland, 84 in Colusa. These temperatures are mild for this time of year. We'll have sunny skies by the afternoon. Average high is 84 degrees, and so we are, again, several degrees below that. And the reason for that is that delta breeze, right? Of course, we do have a low pressure kind of sitting over the west coast, helping to keep us cooler, but that onshore flow is really responsible for those daytime high temperatures being cooler than average, because really all day long, you can see even by noon, we still are dealing with that delta breeze. Normally, this picks up in the evening hours, which we do see. It definitely picks up in the evening, but because it continues all day long and even into the overnight as well, that's why we have this pattern of some cooler weather right now. That onshore flow through the overnight hours, though, will help to bring some marine stratus to the valley. So not necessarily reducing visibility per se, but we will have some low clouds during those overnight hours. Saturday evening, very similar story where we see those winds continuing to pick up through the evening hours. Now, like I said, kind of the one deal through the weekend is that there's a chance for some storms in the Sierra, both for Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. It's not necessarily as good every day. We won't necessarily see as many storms every single day, but that chance is going to be there in the high elevations every single day through the weekend. So as we take a look at FUTURECAST, you'll see for Friday, things in the valley are going to be dry. Might have some of that marine stratus sticking around, but again, we're going to stay dry. Really not expecting any rain in the Sacramento or San Joaquin valleys. As we look at the high country, though, you can see by noon to the 2 o'clock time frame, that's when we start to see those thunderstorms pop up, and they'll linger through the afternoon hours. Just that terrain, that elevation really helping to fire off those storms. They'll taper off as we go through the evening, into the overnight, and through the morning hours as well. And then for Saturday, again, maybe the chance is not quite as good, certainly better for the eastern slope, and then down in the southern Sierra, down near Yosemite as well. So there is that chance every single day. Again, not necessarily going to see storms every single day and every single location, but there's going to be that opportunity. So if you're going up to the high country, it's important to be aware and be ready, because conditions will change rapidly. We'll go from sunny skies to stormy in just a matter of minutes, in some cases 10 minutes or less, right? These mountain thunderstorms can really pop up, fire off, and get going very, very quickly. Also, make sure that you have some shelter nearby, right? A tent is not shelter. A pavilion is not shelter. Anything that's not enclosed really doesn't count as shelter. You need a fully enclosed building or a hard-topped vehicle that'll protect you from the rain, the wind, and also hail. If we happen to get any of that, we could see some pea-sized hail with any of these storms that pop up. So not expecting severe weather per se, but certainly you don't want to be caught out in the elements when it's dumping rain. There's lots of lightning and potentially some small hail as well. To avoid this altogether, the American Hiking Society just recommends being off the peaks by the time we get towards about noon. That avoids those prime thunderstorm hours. You don't have to worry about being caught out on the trail. Hike and climb early. This way you could be back in town, kind of back in the safety of some buildings, or at least around those shelter buildings by the time those storms do actually pop up and get going. That's important to remember if you're going up the Sierra today, at any point through the weekend, and then even through next week as well, as we do have those daily thunderstorm chances in the Sierra. Low pressure kind of sitting right over the west coast. It doesn't really move all that much. High pressure to the west, high pressure to the east, but right over California and the Pacific Northwest, we do have that low pressure and that cooler temperature as well that comes with it. Notice the high pressure, though. By the time we flip the calendar over from May to June, this is June 1st, notice how high pressure builds in over the Great Plains, the Great Lakes, and even into the Canadian prairies a little bit. That's going to bring some much warmer temperatures to this part of the country, and then also up into Canada as well, where we'll see some warmer temperatures. That's something to watch, because that is what started a lot of those wildfires in northern Alberta not too long ago, is when we got that high pressure building in over the prairies, and then it was hot and dry, and then all that smoke wasn't just a Canadian problem, it was also an American problem too, because places like Denver, Dallas, and even into the Great Lakes and the upper Northeast, we saw those problems with smoke and air quality, right? So just something to watch. But notice how the low pressure just kind of stays right over the west coast. So even as other parts of the country and Canada really start to warm up, I don't think it's really going to happen to California. Maybe we'll add a few degrees, maybe 5 degrees or so, moving from the 70s into the low 80s. But in general, I do expect us to stay cooler. Now, as we run it out a few more days, this is now about June 4th, June 5th. Notice how the high pressure builds in over the middle part of the country, even over the mountain west in some areas. But because we got a low pressure off to the west and a low pressure off to the east of that high, we're kind of setting up into what looks like an omega block. That's the Greek letter omega, and you can kind of see how the pattern follows the shape of that omega. That's why it's called an omega block. These are pretty persistent patterns. Sometimes can be hard to dislodge that high pressure when it becomes stuck between the two lows. And so depending on exactly where this block sets up, if indeed this block does set up, depending on where it is, we could be stuck under a low pressure system, which would keep us cooler than average, potentially well into the month of June. Things to watch as we kind of look beyond the holiday weekend, but specifically for this weekend in the Valley, 79 on Saturday, 77 on Sunday, and 79 on Monday. Average high for this time of year is 84 degrees, so we're going to be several degrees below average. It's going to be a really nice weekend. Really the only thing, right, if there's two things to take away, one, it's going to be a nice weekend. The second thing is that there are going to be those scattered Sierra thunderstorms like we talked about. So if you are going up to the high country, it's important to practice good thunderstorm safety and, again, be off the peaks by the time we get towards about noon or 1 o'clock. Looking at the next 10 days, 77 on Friday. And then as we go through the Memorial Day weekend, we're going to stay in those 70s, about 79 on Saturday, 79 for Memorial Day on Monday as well. And then once we get to the extended part of the forecast, we see those 80s return. But that is at or below average for this time of year as we roll into June. So I think we'll take these temperatures. It's not every May that we can get away with temperatures like this. Thanks for watching.